Later.
Yeah, there's a number of things. We had I talked with Henry about what he thought would be the best way to approach the farming community up in that northern part of the watershed. And it wasn't totally clear about whether we would offer them to come individually and talk to us with if they would prefer that, or to have a group. This morning he sent me a list of 11 farmers that he knows are actively farming in the town of Springfields, and that we could use their facility to meet, which I think probably makes sense to do it, particularly now. Well, they can't be doing a whole lot of farming because of what time of year it is.
Yeah.
So I think I'll send out a letter and invite them to come, and I'll get a couple of dates that the facility is available from
Right.
the other folks.
And wasn't OLT wanting to join that meeting too? What do I remember about the Otsego Land Trust not having?
Oh, yeah, no, they are interested in meeting with them to talk to them about the opportunities.
Right.
To have parts of their land go into a trust. The state is trying to have 30% of the land in a trust like that, where it's no longer being farmed, no longer being you can't cut the trees down, but they still own the land apparently, and that should happen by 2030. So they sort of have this 30-30.
So will we share that contact information with them so they can get connected to those folks, or how will that go?
I just got this and I haven't been back to them.
But you think that might work, or not sure?
I don't think they go together so well. I mean, we'd certainly bring that up, but I think that the people from the trust, I think they really want to get in and really explain what they're doing, and that's really probably all that's going to happen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead. And I think that's kind of it, I think. Right. Oh, the soil and water offerings to homeowners. Yes, I sent that to you and Bonnie today. Again, this was the list of things that Soil and Water does free.
Oh, yeah.
For homeowners, and we thought it might be good if it came from a WSC group like the Ag Committee. So you just let me know when you guys need it.
That reminds me of one other thing. I got a email this morning from Christos that he is communicated with whoever oversees their work, that they felt that a grant big enough to really dredge the Clark Pond should be part of the 9E grant, or something that would happen after that, because it's going to be expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And what they would do is that they would put in a grant that's due in the next month or so to get money to do the testing of the sediments in the pond and the other things about the pond, so that we'd have data to go ahead and request the dredging when we got there.
And Soil and Water would be the folks that would apply for the grant.
Yes.
He said in his notes.
Yeah.
So I wrote back to him and said, when is that grant gonna go in? Because that was what he and Amy were working on. And so I don't know, it sounds like it's June-ish. I don't know that he gave a date in that email though.
There were a couple of things that were they're going to end. They were open till like February that I saw, but I don't know which the title of which one or they think is the best shot. So
I'm gonna meet with Christos Friday, because I also wanted some more detail than it was in there, just so I can keep on top of it and make sure everything goes through. I also don't know the exact date. I should be able to tell you everything.
Okay. And you got the copy of that he sent too as well, that,
Yeah, the email you mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have something to
Yeah.
go on. All right, good. The line, the pig line. Are we, what happened to that? Are we still gonna do that?
Well, we have the water and sewer board meeting next week,
Ah.
next Tuesday, so we'll bring that. I'll bring that up then. I haven't.
Okay,
It's something I think best discussed. Everybody will be there and we can.
sounds great.
So I'll be sure to do that.
Okay. And Joe, remind me because I can't remember. Were you gonna take the bubblers and ice melter issue to the village, or were we gonna wait? To see if the municipalities might wanna work on it together? I don't recall.
I'm not sure either. I'm not sure what, if we have a recommendation that I know we've got some
From info, yeah,
thinking about it. But it's I think it's a major decision to take.
mhm,
And I don't know when the village would be in a position to do something in the alternative than what it's got now with its floating docks, but I'm not opposed to it. I didn't leave the last meeting with the impression that we had a conclusion
I think you're right.
that there was a problem so clearly associated with a remedy that we could come up with.
Okay, I
But
think that's right. Florian, Doug had mentioned a muscle survey. Is that something that BFS does or has done in the past, or?
So we've been studying mussels since they invited themselves to the lake.
Yeah.
And then we upped the intensity of those studies these last 2 years.
Okay.
Thanks to funding from CFOC.
Okay,
And, you know, speaking to the needs of the 9E plan, our plan is to continue that intensive level of mussel study irrespective of 9E needs, you know,
Okay.
moving forward.
Okay, I'm trying to understand Doug's email about this and whether or not,
I don't know the inner workings of the grant, but just, you know, as a general comment, like in other grant experiences I've had, there's flexibility as long as it fits under the project
Right.
objectives.
okay,
And so if it doesn't take too much time and that question can be asked to the people who say yay or nay, then,
okay.
you know, that.
But you're doing that work, you're gonna continue to be
We're
involved.
going to continue to do that,
Okay,
yeah.
all right,
if it's not reimbursed under the grant,
Right.
what is your funding source?
We will continue to seek support from CFOC and other entities,
Okay.
you know, to support our interns. And that money comes from a variety of sources. So that, you know, the CFOC has been a huge deal for us the last 2 years.
okay.
And we'll continue to talk to them.
What stands for Florian?
Community Foundation was, yeah,
That's the Lake Sustainability Fund.
The lake.
right?
yeah, that's been a real boom for us. It's also benefited the CLMB.
And
yeah.
I've talked to Jeff and he thinks they're gonna be putting out that grant opportunity sometime in February. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So right when we started doing it last year, maybe got public with the idea of decisions being made early spring. Florida was like early April, we had those decisions made.
Yeah,
In terms of the amount this year, I did get some outside funding towards grants, you know, a few grand. The Lake Fund itself, you know, spends off a certain percentage every year. The absolute amount goes up, when just come in, so when as our balance increases, there's gonna be more funding for the grants.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm just gonna-
so I'm thinking, I want us to sort of have a sense of what we're gonna, ask for. Jeff, when will we know the amount of the grant this time?
Around when we start thinking about opening it, we got some end of the year pledge payment, probably get some early in the year pledge payments, which increases the cash on hand and the amount we can distribute. So I think last year was 15, and I think the year before was 20,000. assume around in that range. But again, as the balance grows, we'll end up at 20 to 25, 25 to 30. It's just a matter of collecting. I had tried, I think Bertina, I told you, I had tried to kind of figure out if I could do an end around and say, well, we have a pledge total. Can I use that as the balance? And it's like a quasi down thing, but I was told, that's not how it works.
Right,
I tried.
right. You won't get into grant heaven. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't want to run afoul of anything. but
Right.
I would assume 15 to 20 for this year.
Okay.
Let me ask a question.
You please.
It seems to me that we have this 9-element plan in mind and we're pursuing, and muscle studies are one way or another going to be part of that plan by the time we finish up. So to the extent you're doing research now to sort of buttress that decision to make it a 9E component, after that, after it's adopted, we will be pursuing funding as we pursue funding for other.
All the other,
items,
yeah, yeah.
Right, so
Yeah,
is there an information deficit that you feel we need to have funded before we complete our 9E plan on muscles, or in order to make it an integral part of the plan, or
at
is it
this
just
point,
a parallel ongoing work?
at this point, no, we wish to carry that work forward for, the sake of the community and our own scientific interests.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't want it to like almost ever stop kind of thing,
yeah, that's gonna be.
If it stops, it'll be
Watch.
good news because we won't have any.
Yeah, well-
No, never happen. No.
We would have like a blanket section in 9-element plan for invasive species.
Yes.
So hopefully zebra and quagga will be kind of stable and our effort will be more monitoring, and perhaps like there is going to be some eradication, method that becomes available, then that could be a focus. But if unfortunately something else comes in, then we need to ramp up the
That,
effort to
Yeah.
study that one. So that's the kind of idea that we should be working off of,
Okay.
that we would have kind of constant flow of things that are stabilizing and potentially something that is coming in, or like potentially coming in if something pops up at Canandaigua or Goodyear, then
we
we
need to
really
worry
should
about,
be
yeah.
worried about.
okay. And Jim is on now. He says he's on.
He is.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to add in the conversation because I've been talking to Alan a bit about Doug's emails and his inquiry. I think it has mainly to do with how the grant is structured and less like whether it's an includable item. So we're working on that right now, but it's just complicated given the way it's written. And I think municipality grants, maybe they're a bit different than like academic ones, because I've always had more leeway, but Ellen said there's a lot of like back and forth about everything we've already submitted as far as checking this and verifying that, and so stay tuned.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, Jacob, let's go back to how about the report to the state? Still working on it? huh?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
still working on it. I apologize, I don't have it already, but there's just a lot of stuff going on. It's not going to be a lengthy document. I have actually found some of the ones, but I don't know when they stopped sending them out, but they did back in the 80s. They were sending reports. They were very brief. They largely just sort of described a summary of things, and then they had like all of the letters that they had sent out.
You can impress them with the nuclear medicine one.
There you go.
Yeah, send it out.
So it'll be soon. I'm trying to get it done as soon as I can, but
And then the septic tank replacement, you did sending out a return receipt request letter to the homeowner?
I am, yes. I got your comments back. I'm just gonna make those quick edits, and tomorrow I should be sending that out.
Okay, wonderful. Everyone following what we're talking about?
Yes,
here?
sorry,
That-
but it's the septic tank replacement. We still haven't gotten any feedback, although I've talked to both the homeowner and the contractor about it. So this is just a follow-up, again, sort of stating what we need and sending it as a certified letter, so.
Let's talk about the first 3 chapters of the 9E. So we've all had an opportunity to look at them, the larger we, the royal we, and provided input to Jake if we had any. I know BFS and Kyoko did an intensive review for us, which was very, very helpful. And I think you spoke with Wendy this morning. You want to update the group?
Sure, yeah, so we met for about 2 hours. We went through largely all of Kyoko and Florian's feedback. Not everything is going to be addressed now, but a lot of those items. So I don't think we're gonna be like, remaking every table. Some of that stuff will be as it is now, but we'll have a lot of that addressed. She's gonna try to put in what you had written up, Joe, and we definitely have a lot of good comments, but it's just the delay involved and the possible budgeting implications if we do too much now as opposed to waiting when we send it out to leadership.
So just to be clear, we are gonna send it out to, I'm sorry.
Yep, no worries. So I discussed it with her. We're looking at like a 2-week time frame for her to have updated everything and get it back to me. And then I can either send it to you to review again, or just based on what we've talked about at that point, send it out. But we're looking about a 2-week delay. It probably means the public meeting about it would be like mid-February as opposed to like the last week of January.
Okay.
But I didn't want to push it back any further than that.
Right. And so the comments that people have made, I've made some, Bill's made some, others probably have.
Yeah,
Those will go in that second round to the extent they're key.
and it'll take me a while to enter all of those, so we have a lot of great stuff, but
Yeah,
please don't do anything extra at this point because
Yeah.
it's gonna be much easier to add that in a combined document.
so those will all go in after we send it to leadership. And let's you and I send it out together, send out
Sure.
the message, if you will, sort of, here's what we're.
Well, I think some of it, and I'm perfectly happy with whatever everyone intended, but like, so for example, Victoria gave me a lot of comments where it's like very specific, like on this page, here's a thought about this. I was just gonna add those as comments.
Yeah.
So that when a leadership member or whatever opens it, they can already see that there's comments there. They can
Great.
comment on the comment, they can add new stuff.
Leadership, I think it's
so-
great that leadership will see what we've asked be added.
Yeah.
So that they understand that there are certain things that we think need to be in there.
Yeah.
The law,
But they need,
some of
Sorry.
the things I asked to be put in, just because they're about us, other things. So we'll have this round, and then we'll have the round when it goes out to leadership.
but again, thank you to Kyoko and Florian for
Yeah.
putting that time in around the holidays. I think it's
Yeah,
much better, the science stuff.
I got a question. Did in that review, anybody address this focused on phosphorus
yes,
for an oligotrophic
Yes.
lake
Yeah.
that,
And we're taking phosphorus out of the title. I think that sort of the key thing, and Kyoko had brought up this in her reviews, in terms of the modeling. That in and of itself is not everything under the sun. And Wendy actually did agree that taking out poor phosphorus in the title was better to do now.
Yeah.
Because then we're not taking away later when the state has already seen that it's in there, because that is going to be a main focus for them. But we've taken it out now, and we're clear that that's one of the things we're talking about, but we're looking at a bigger picture.
No.
It's probably better that
Well,
way.
surely
So it's out of the
control of
title,
it is-
but
we have to control it, right? Yeah.
That's all very important. Just the way it begins with pollution, and the phosphorus pollution is sort of their concept of what this whole thing is about. It just seemed like an awful lot of efforts being wasted over something that really isn't such a big problem for us.
again, I see that as like a yes and a no. It's not a problem for us perhaps as much now, but if you look at the models from the other projects, it seems like the implications are that transportation from the watershed to the lake is likely to increase in upcoming decades. So I certainly don't view it as like an aside that we're not worried about it.
No,
but
no, I didn't
definitely
mean to
we
say
have
that.
a more complicated picture here.
That's the thing that strikes me about it. This is a multi-dimensional effort. Everybody's involved in it.
Yeah.
To label it as one thing, just, I think, misleads people.
100%.
Well, the other 90 grants that we have available, you do have that.
Completely, and I think that's where it's like, maybe we take it out now and we try to make it more general, and then we see what the feedback is from the
I mean, if the
state,
state comes back and says you have to have this, and okay.
right?
But we should at least represent it the
But
way we see it now.
Even the model itself is not going to be, we're not going to be limited to just looking at phosphorus, I think.
Right.
Yeah, one
Yeah,
thing,
go.
so, if you could let me know, I think I made the comments in Word, just resolve the ones that are addressed at this point and the ones that are not addressed. As you know, some reason, like not too labor intensive or something like that, because later on, if something is not addressed, I would keep pointing those out.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah, so that would be much appreciated.
And when we discussed that, I already told her I wanted a copy before she took everything out that we weren't addressing. So I will have a copy of the report that literally has everything that was not addressed for you. And then it'll have the modifications that were made based on what you said. So that's easy to handle.
Okay, yeah, I just want to track the fate of each comments that I made, and
Sure.
I do this all the time.
Fate.
I love that. The fate comment. Dead, it's dead.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, let me see. Jim, hi, Happy New Year. Are you on?
Happy New Year to you. I've never been.
Hi, Jim. Don't even tell us what the temperature is down there. Do not even say it out loud. Bonnie, you either. Yeah.
Nothing great.
Jim,
It's Cooperstown, believe it or not.
Jim, I think you were gonna have a special meeting of the board on both the styrofoam and the pledge, right? So you'll get back to us?
Yeah, both things coming up, yeah, I jumped the gun a little bit on the pledge. There's some folks that wanna make the pledge more, and this is with a small d, democratic, okay?
Okay,
You know, as written, the pledge is oriented to property owners along the lake, and a lot of people think, well, you know, there's uses to the lake, obviously, whether you're a kayaker or whatever. So yeah, we're gonna modify it a little bit.
Okay.
To make it more, people friendly, more democratic, so that's one thing. I don't know when we wanna talk about the styrofoam, but, the idea is that we would help, offset costs, of which I'm not quite sure how that would work, so maybe.
okay. Well, let's,
You know, willing to listen.
yeah, let's talk about it now. So Victoria did a yeoman's job of talking with the Trout Association. What's their
Yeah.
actual name?
Trout Unlimited.
Trout Unlimited. And there was some, go ahead, talk about that.
Yeah, so I met with Steve Eichler from Trout Unlimited because he's been keeping track of the foam issue for a while. And he thinks that there are only about 5 docks that are really a problem. And the ones that he's talking about, they are encapsulated, but they have holes in them. So the foam is getting out through the holes. So he knows exactly what kind of foam floats they are, and they're only $67, I think. So I don't know if it would be easier to just replace them completely or if we still wanted to wrap them.
And then you have people who will go do it.
Yeah, so I think we had talked about kind of getting a volunteer team together, and I don't know, Lord, would the dive team be able to go check it out, just scope it out in the spring and see if they can identify them, or?
Certainly inspect them, that's what.
Yeah.
I'm sure, doing the repairs.
Right. Yeah.
Conditioned.
Whose docks, whose floats are these? Are there inventory they're specifically identified? Identified?
I don't know if he knows exactly which ones, but he says he thinks there's like 5, and they're all right in front of lakefront.
So they're either the village docks or the lakefront.
Right.
Hotels docks.
Right. So then it's a question of who pays for getting them fixed, if it.
Well, now OLA has said maybe we could help, so
Right.
but OLA would need to know what the real number is
Right.
in order to vote on it. And then we'd need to know if Paul Lord's team can do it and when. Because if we're gonna do it, it should be an organized approach. We know who's gonna pay for it and who's gonna do it. Do you wanna work with Paul and Jim on that, or?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just not sure how the mechanics would work. You know what I
Right.
mean? Well, we were certainly going to help.
I guess my threshold question is how do we deal with private property? And that relationship and using either NGO funds or public funds to repair private property. I mean, do we want to, if we know for certain what these are, do we want to issue notices or a friendly letter that describes the problem and invite the property owner to abate it? I mean, I just can't imagine somebody's gonna let us work on their dock and anybody's gonna be comfortable working on somebody's
Right.
private dock, and then liability issues or disputes come up and they say, oh, we broke this way, we're fixing that. That just seems like not a good path to go down.
So how do we get a smaller group together to sort of figure this out? I mean, does it make sense for the three of you to work on this and get back to us, or?
Well, Bertine,
Yeah,
I mean, one idea, and it might be just, we could offer, and first of all, we're not gonna get involved in the work, all right? I mean, but we could offer just like $100 stipend to somebody who wants to remediate or remove styrofoam. I mean, I don't feel any obligation to, pay for everything, but we could help. I think just giving an incentive, it has to be easy and clean to administer. We don't have a staff, we're all volunteers.
yeah, I got mine.
We're not gonna check people out, and I can't believe someone's gonna, bilk us, or lie to us for the job. We would, if someone says they've got a styrofoam float that's deteriorating, we'd be willing to give them, I'm just throwing this out, $100 to address it. Maybe it costs them 500, maybe it costs them 75, I wouldn't care.
Yeah, okay.
But
So,
I'm open to any other ideas too, I mean, but it has to be easy and it can't involve administration or our people going around to look at these things.
yeah,
Well, I'm still puzzled about the scope of this problem. I mean, I think it's one thing to say we have no knowns, but I don't know about the unknowns
Right.
and how widespread this is. And a related question is there any kind of regulation that prohibits the dispersal or discharge of these kinds of particulates into the water? I mean, is there a regulatory role? I know
There is.
we're living by the rule of carrots and not sticks, but I do think that it's just hard to believe when I've seen the accumulation of styrofoam that it's just coming it's so localized. So we may be fighting off a much bigger issue
Right.
and
So
not have enough
And there
data.
may only be 5 now, but the fact is that styrofoam ages and it comes apart and we don't know what next year will bring.
yeah. So it to me, it's very complicated. It's, do you have a styrofoam dock or whatever it might be? Is it wrapped? Because if it isn't wrapped, I would think we'd want to wrap it.
And a lot of folks don't know this.
I know, but I don't know how else to
They don't know.
get a handle on it. Go ahead.
It starts with counting the number of docks on the lake and trying to identify that, and then we get a number of docks that are around this whole lake. And then go maybe have volunteers go to those docks at some point and inspect them visually, not knowing really everything, but getting an idea basically.
Yeah, I think what we've got to do is, we have OLA, which essentially knows those who are, for the most part, around the lake, and we've got the septic list. We could do some sort of communication that we're willing to help in some way.
And we're doing that now with the bigger docks. We're analyzing these docks at the right here at the Ram, at the hotel, so this process.
Who's that? Who's doing
Well,
that?
you're trying to make that happen, just preliminarily, you've already gotten some information to know that they're a problem.
Yeah.
And then pass that along to the rest of the people on the lake, saying this is underway, we just need to include everybody if we're gonna do this.
And it's all not just the docks, and there are only so many floating docks around the lake. But during the summer, we have a lot more floating platforms for swimming. And those, the owners should know, because they're taken out. Whether they would come forward or not is another issue, but
They should be notified.
Well, could we on the carrot side of things, do a PSA notice maybe through the Lake Association or whoever has the mailing list? And just say, we're identifying this as an issue, would you please inspect your property and please notify us, if you have found an issue. Either, and then the next part is a little more difficult, fix it yourself or let us know because we're trying to organize a way of abating this across the board. But I think a little citizen science, I guess, that is, well, look at your own float and tell us about it, is a lot more, maybe feasible than having, you know, a group of volunteers go inspect. And not even know on the day they're going, what's the float that isn't in, and so on and so forth.
Is that something OLA could consider, Jim?
Well, yeah, we're willing to help, but I don't know if we're gonna get volunteers, if you're talking about getting volunteers to look at these things.
No,
This
just
would be
sending,
This would be sending out a kind of a public service announcement letter, identifying the problem, asking people to do a self-inventory, self-report.
Yes, yeah, in a general sense, we're willing to help, that's a true statement. And what we're wrestling with, I'm not quite sure how yet, but yes, we support it and we would help.
Right, well, the specific give would be somehow having a portal where this information would be assembled. You know, if you have an issue with your dock or you have this problem, would you document it and report it to Trout Unlimited or whatever portal we've got so that we can assess the nature and extent of the problem. Now, a lot of people are going to be seeing that as a confession of potential liability, but you know, the problem is the problem.
Who would do that administration, Joe?
Well, that would, once we had an inventory of problem docks, then we would come up with a program. Whether we're gonna ask people to fix them themselves or,
so it makes,
or raise funds to do it, but I don't think we belong in the business of remediating private property issues. Heavens, if styrofoam is an issue, well, broken septic systems are, we are not replacing at public expense anybody's septic system. So I just.
Well, but the county is helping with that in the state. There's a program, you know, Otsego Department of Health is doing that, right?
yep.
Yes.
So what,
We sent it out last year, remember, Kate?
yes, you're right, they are doing that, yes.
And
And
they'll give
there's
grants
been,
for replacement.
Yeah.
Up to 10, I think, help up to $10,000.
yes, and they've done 5 homeowners have gone there for help. Yeah. Now this is for septic, we're talking about that. So I guess, you know, just as a, you know, operational view of this, it seems to me what we would do is start out by letting people know that we're interested in protecting the lake. Because styrofoam is an issue, and we know laws are coming soon to prohibit it. We'd like to know, we'd like to be able to help. The OLA is willing to help in some way once we identify those places that are problematic. And then ask them to tell us in some way. They can, you know, get back to us by email. I don't know who us is. I think it would be OLA by email telling us if there's an issue, and then we go from there. But one step at a time. If we try and, you know, chew this whole elephant at once, it won't work. So it seems like the first thing is to figure out if we've got an issue and let them know we might be able to help with both the diving group, help from OLA and whatever OCCA is willing to do. Does that make sense, Jim?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
You know, one thing that might help the average person who may need to replace whatever the floats are, is that they're moderately expensive and the shipping on them is pretty dramatic. And that if you could find out how many you needed and you could order them and they got shipped here as a bulk, you could possibly provide something for people to replace them with at a significant discount, which might be one way to have an incentive to get them to go ahead and actually get that done. I mean, it would depend a little bit on the size of the dock and whether it's out of the water or still in the water and lots of other things like that, but getting in to replace one that's in underneath and screwed into the bottom of the platform that the humans go on, it's not that simple.
Another issue that I want to point out is that the same styrofoam dock banning, bills are coming up in the Senate, the state Senate
Yeah.
and Assembly.
Right.
And people who do not know about this, who may think, oh, we need to have a new dock or swing platform or replace, what is degrading. The companies might be trying to get the inventory off. So there may be some lakefront property owners who might be shelling out thousands in soon to be banned styrofoam based products. And I think we need to let them know that at least those laws are in the pipeline.
Right, so in this letter, like I said, we would say it's not good for the lake, and also there are laws that are coming, et cetera. So I think the best thing to do is maybe for Jim and maybe Kyoga, do you want to work on this?
Or like Steve,
letter?
he has done, I have written multiple articles on styrofoam for the OLA journal,
Yeah,
so.
but this is a letter to the homeowner, so, this is coming in, it's going to the state is probably gonna approve that styrofoam is no longer acceptable. If we put all this in a letter, then we might get back the scope of the issue. So I'm just looking for someone to take the lead on this. Crickets. Jim, do you want to, otherwise I'm gonna let it go off the agenda and not do anything.
With the
travel,
Yeah, can we check?
Draft, we could all help look at it.
Yeah.
Somebody will do an initial draft.
Yeah, I can
We
make
have
that
to
just.
look at it.
Okay, so you reach out to him and Jim will keep you in the loop. Maybe we can draft a
I
letter.
think let's talk about it. This is early January, right? So we got some time.
This is Bonnie with a comment that I think in addition to sending an educational, helpful letter with incentives to property owners, that if our communication and outreach committee also sends it to all at Seago and at Seago 2000 and the Ram Trust and the OLA, just saying it raises awareness so that if people say, well, I got this letter, I can put it in the trash can. And they start seeing that their neighbors are talking about it and they're seeing it in 3 or 4 sources. It reinforces not only the importance of it, but also that we're actively involved in continuing to educate and motivate about issues that are important to the watershed.
Right. Yeah, that's what the communication committee should do, but that doesn't exist. So I'm right now, I'm the interim lead on it because Amy's gone and we're trying to figure out if Victoria and I can do this. If we can, then we would definitely engage Darla and OCCA has a list we could use. So
Is there lobbying authority in Trout Unlimited or Cedar Lake Association where they can enlist our state assembly people and senator in supporting the legislation? I mean, is that happening?
I don't know. Do you know? Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Would you ask the traffic guy?
I mean, because they
If
got
if they've been trying to access their legislators to support this or?
Yeah, I think Steve was more just, it was like his personal concern because he,
Okay,
lives and does stuff on the lake. So I don't know if he's actually brought it to Trout Unlimited or if
Okay.
he's just been,
Would it be feasible
Keeping
for
track.
you all to provide some sort of brief letter, like the way Bonnie did with the water definition?
who's you all?
WSC,
Oh,
like you were talking about the other letter, just you're representing the lakes in the area, right? Or the lake in the area and several towns.
New York State Federation of Lake Associations may have something in its hopper right now.
Yeah.
All day the car if you want.
Oh, that'd be great, Pat.
I do think that's a great idea that each municipality could probably sign a common letter, either individually or jointly to the legislators. Obviously, if there's going to be a law, there's got to be a constituency for the law.
Okay, well, let's see what they're doing. That's a great idea. And then we can join in and we'll write our own letter or whatever we want to do. All right, so let's see how we go
Great
with it.
question.
I just wanted to end it with so if that letter is sent out could be specifically tell these people that are notifying around the lake that we're looking with this information to have volunteers, because we don't have that in place to take care of everybody, but if they stepped up and were volunteered, that's what this letter is supposed to be
That
about.
could be another way of doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Okay, a couple of things we need to work on. One is, I would like the reps from each town, and I've already done it with the village. If you could get back to your towns and ask if there's something specific they want in the 9E plan.
Oh.
We've heard nothing. So if, Springfield, Otsego, and, Middlefield, you can contact and see if there's something they specifically want in there. I'd appreciate that. Also, I need some advice. Recall after the leadership meeting, there was a sense that perhaps the municipalities could work on something while we're doing this 9E plan. I sent out a notice to all the municipality leaders saying, here are some ideas: bubblers, styrofoam, salt. I haven't heard back except from Otsego, who had some thoughts, but not necessarily a Ted wrote back with ideas about what had been offered, but not really a plan. So I guess I'm looking for your advice. What's next? I mean, I don't think we can continue to ask them to do something if they're not willing to step up and do it, or step up, but if they're not willing to engage. Or do you have any thoughts about that?
Oh,
About
I
the
guess I
only,
have a thought, which was possibly, getting the highway department people in all of them to, get together sometime to just share concerns, resources. That might, be almost a self-imposed project upon the four municipalities that would, start the collaboration process.
No time is not a
Yeah.
good time to do that.
It's no time.
They're putting in 80 hours a week these days.
But it's snow months and ditch digging times, it's
Just
even
saying,
one.
how many hours they're out there right now. But I hear you.
I guess we found that the best carrot is money, and being able to show what other, highway departments in the state have, what low fruit they've been able to reach out for, might be something, the meeting doesn't have to be, until June 1st, when we probably had our last snowfall.
There was I thought a discussion at the last meeting about a lot of the highway departments are actually engaged in some better, if not best practices. And so it may be more a question of inventorying what they're doing and then stating that that's already going to be part of our 90 plan. That's our status quo. So it wouldn't be part of the,
Yeah,
there may be more to do, but at least to have a threshold or baseline practices that seem to be a consensus among the jurisdictions.
I can say that about maybe 6 weeks ago, I got a email from Christos about a grant that was available for salt sheds. And I gave that to the people in Springfield, and they turned right around, called Cryptos, and they've got this whole thing working for a grant for them to get a
Yeah,
salt shed.
Galen mentioned that.
Which they haven't had.
yeah. Galen mentioned that at leadership meetings.
Going into the lake, but,
I think it's gotta come from the municipality leaders. I don't think it can be WSC saying you should work on this. And again, I haven't heard back. I guess what I'll do is I'll ask if there's a particular thing. It might be good to, seems like it would be good to work on lake access, since that got a lot of time at the leadership meeting. When do we offer for people to have access to the lake and boat cleaning and all that? It sounds like that at that meeting, that was something that was interesting. I just don't know if we have a lead person to pull that group together. So I'll ask them for an update and see if what they're thinking on that might be. But as you go back to your towns, I would suggest that you bring this up. If you go to a board meeting, should be going to board meetings and giving an update on WSC, I would assume. And asking, you know, what are the things that you think you might want to work on as a foursome, as 4 municipalities, what would make sense? So I'd rather have it come from them. And we can ask at the next leadership meeting, but that isn't planned for a while.
I have a suggestion that what kind of things do on the ground highway workers want? And there may be things that are totally outside the scope of the Watershed Supervisory Committee, but there may be something that is related to watershed sustainability, but we just do, like, they do not make the connection. Like salt shed, you know, I don't think many people knew that having a shed was possible with a grant under the DEC, programs. So there may be something that we could help the highway departments if that equipment or, resources are used for vegetating ditches or reducing soil runoff or erosion or something like that. And I don't think that the people at each municipalities necessarily know that connection, and that's what this group can help. Does that kind of make sense in terms of how municipalities work? Like, do you get complaints from the highway department? Like, we need this, no, this is breaking down, those kind of things.
You need new equipment. Always.
And Bill has done with Springfield, if he would send me the DEC grant information about salt sheds and salt runoff, I will get it to the Middlefield board, and then they can talk with their highway department.
Okay. Happy to do that.
There are also, all the towns have planning boards and they have zoning boards. The planning board in Middlefield is particularly interested in this kind of thing. And so maybe it's not something that should be going to the supervisor, but it might be something that should be addressed to the planning board. And in the town of Otsego, we have a land use subcommittee that is completely redoing our Lake District regulations. So sending something to the supervisor is different from sending it to the head of the planning board, who's also the head of the land use subcommittee. So
I think, yeah.
there's that whole idea of like, who gets it?
Yeah.
And then does that person see it as something important to pass on?
The question is, do we send something? And if so, what? So let's put that, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And see if something comes up. But in the meantime, if you could talk to the supervisors, both about input to the 9E, but also about, and the mayor, about something they want to work on together, which is what we talked about at the leadership meeting. I would like it to come from them.
And here's an example, I think it was George Gilbo that the publication sent around where they talked about best practices in different arenas, and one of them was street cleaning.
Yeah.
So it's not snow, it's keeping the streets clean in the summertime, that they described it, kind of vacuums, the sweepers.
Right.
Whatever, and that equipment is obviously expensive, and at one point, Bill, I think it was the village of Milford wanted to share a Cooperstown street sweeper. A request that we found wasn't feasible to do, but to keep the streets clean, we have a street sweeper, I'm not sure how feasible it is for other jurisdictions to have, at least in their more concentrated areas. But
Yeah, I
your
got,
point
I have a
about
copy.
and grants for equipment that would contribute to Lake Health. That is a concrete request that the supervisors might want to make.
Okay.
Yeah, I just looked at the WQIP, the salt reduction, and not just the structure to cover the salt storage area, but it says purchase brine making equipment and storage, retrofit snow plows with live edge or segmented plow blades, snow guards, truck mounted brine spreading equipment, and GPS sensors to implement road salt reduction practices.
Brine spreading equipment and the brine itself is about triple or quadruple, I believe, what it costs for other kind salt spraying. So there are good ideas, but can they be paid for? We have 75 miles of local roads. When you talk about the town of Otsego, now all of that doesn't lead to water down to Otsego Lake, but some of it also leads to water down to Catarago Lake. And yeah, we've got a sweep room. We just ordered a new one. We have a salt shed. It's not big enough for the amount of salt we have to do. So, and the people who might be able to help us are the Cornell Local Roads Program. David Orr is the head of that. He happens to be a friend of Ted Fury's. He came up here. He's willing to have do some work for us. I think it might be a beneficial connection with them. It's not just about ditching, you know, and I want to talk to him, and I'm talking to our highway department about possibly doing a research design where we try out a couple of different possibilities where we do one side of the road one way and the other side of the road the other way and compare the cost plus what comes out at the other end. I mean, there are ways that we might be able to see whether some of these ideas for salt or other things that are coming down into the lake might work better. We have so many deep ditches. And, you know, basically the rule for the highway department is keep the water off the road. Because what makes it up, that's what makes it so that we have to rebuild it every year. And it is incredibly expensive to rebuild a road.
No,
So,
or a driveway, yeah.
which now I know, which I didn't know last year, but I know now.
Yeah, we don't.
Can I add something to this? You know, are the municipalities in a broad way up to date on that Canandaigua meeting we had? Because there was so much good information about municipal cooperation that came from that. That to me, that is like, that's a lead. Say, we invite everyone to discuss this thing that we heard that benefits all municipalities, as well as hear your thoughts and ideas on what we can do to help as the 90 plan develops. Because I left that meeting very impressed by the possibilities of cooperation. And I hope it doesn't stay just within our small group, because it can't to be effective. Right? We have to kind of broaden that knowledge.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jeff, but the reps at this table from their municipalities need to take it back. They need to go to their municipalities and engage. It can't just be WSC saying you must do this or that. Can't be me, can't be a letter from me. It has to be, you know, Paul Lord and Bill Richmeyer and Bonnie and Joe. Those four need to go back and say, okay, how are we gonna work together? And then we can engage, we can give staff support, we can do whatever we need to do.
But there also needs to be a recognition of what is going on within the municipalities on their time.
Sure.
You know, if we wait to a certain point in the year, it is all about the budget. We don't have time to talk to you about anything else. Because we are trying to figure out how not to raise taxes more than we're gonna have to.
Yep.
And you want us to come to a meeting during that period of time, you're not gonna get us there. It just, and this year, so also happened to overlap with flu season and bronchitis and all kinds of other things. So I agree that we should have more people there, but there has to be some recognition of the other kinds of timetables that are going on
Yeah,
too.
so this would be a good timing. This part of the year-ish.
Not for the highway department, but perhaps for the board. I would say February perhaps, because we just got a lot of new people elected. And so that's an issue too.
Yeah. All right, well, I
New people is an opportunity, right? To kind of introduce some new concepts and new ideas and
Yes.
approaches.
Yes.
They're always interested in, I should say, many times they're interested in kind of doing something different and not perpetuating kind of same old, same old. So new people often have a more open ear than established people.
Yeah, and we could also arrange for a Canandaigua update. He could perhaps talk to the different entities as a group about how they did this. I mean, we could arrange all kinds of things, but I feel that it, and I think it's critical that it comes from the municipalities instead of something from WSC, which is viewed differently than the individual municipality leaders. So I'm gonna leave it to my representatives. Yeah.
Used to just so put on the highways and all the wrong town roads around here. Is that based on the weather or is that based on the need to get the salt used up so we can get more for next year?
But in our town, it's not just. Closest to the lake is a state road. We have no control over what they're doing.
That's part of it.
And not only that. The town of Otsego roads that come down to Route 80. We can't even create the connection below it because it's underneath the state road. We can't do a different kind of thing there without their permission. So if we put salt on one of the Glen Road coming down to the lake, because that's really steep and people are, a lot of houses on there trying to get up, and the salt comes down and then you hit Route 80. And then it's into the lake. So it's both. And for example, today there was a foot of water on Trip Hill Road because it was raining so hard and there was snow and then it was, so that every day it's a different decision. If the temperature goes down tonight over that 1 foot of water, it's gonna be all ice. So it's every day a different decision for our crews on what it is they're gonna put down.
You got
Complicated.
state, county, towns, and private contractors. All
doing something different.
different things at different times on their own schedules.
Complicated.
It's hard.
It's a great question,
Yeah.
but there is not.
Is there alternatives to salt? Like, I know in Canada, they have the resources like within a ring that they can mine the resources. I'm not sure if they do a mix. It's not primarily stuff.
We don't do primarily salt. We do primarily different kinds of gravel mix. And dirt and sand. It's not primarily salt.
And clay.
Yeah,
Lots of clay.
lots of clay. Lots of things on your car. Okay, so let's move on a little bit here. I think I'll write this up in the minutes and folks can look at it and see if I represented it correctly. The NISFOLA presentation, it's been submitted by Bill and Kyoko, and we haven't heard back yet about will it be accepted?
Yep.
Yes.
I wasn't familiar with that, but they have a thing in there that says that they'll accept them until a certain date unless all the slots are filled before that. It was like, well, wait a minute, when are you deciding on what you're gonna put in there? So I thought we'd better get it in there.
Yeah, good point.
So
Good point.
we'll see.
Joe, I think the inspection letter fee thing is on hold right now. Wanted to be sure. Consumptive use grant, I mentioned in the beginning, but in case people couldn't hear, we could not apply for that grant because the village has already applied for a grant for consumptive use, and you can only apply for one at a time. So Kyoko came up with a great idea during the meeting that can higher education do it? They said absolutely. And so she has gone back to the foundation, the SUNY Foundation, and there's a meeting coming up Friday that I'll listen in on.
Actually, tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Thursday, yeah. To find out if that's something that's feasible. And this is just about to do the assessment of the dam, about what really should we have at the dam. So I think it's a great partner to the 9E and to what Christos is gonna do for Clark Pond, so we'll be hopeful.
And that grant deadline's coming up quick, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
like lickety split.
Yep.
So, that's the latest on that. Really appreciate your work there, Kyoko. I know you're on sabbatical, so I appreciate it. Let's see, I think we have time for, Victoria's, gutter, what I'm not saying. Culvert presentation, which is important for us to take a look at. And then I think pretty much we're in pretty good shape with the agenda. The only other thing that I want to mention is that the drinking water protection project bill is going to offer some times for him to come up and meet with a couple of WSC members so that we can do it at his schedule. So that we can get that going.
Bertine, was there interest in, I saw in a past meeting that I missed, talking about the water intake pipe depth and
Yeah.
how much longer it would have to be to go deeper.
Yeah.
So I got that information.
Oh, please.
Yeah.
Tell us.
So,
Great.
and Paul's sitting right here and he spends time with this, so he can always chime in, but the current depth is, I'm gonna do, it hurts me to do this, but I'm gonna do it in English systems, 45 feet deep. And that intake is,
Yourself.
yeah, I've got both numbers written down, but I'll just do one.
All right.
It's 45 feet deep currently, and that pipe is 1,700 feet out.
No, it's 20.
Okay. The number I got here is that if we want to go 5 feet deeper, we would have to go out another 700. Because of the slope.
That's right.
All right, well, we'll nix that. We'll talk more later.
the depth is correct, 45 feet
The
deep.
current depth right now at the top of the pipe is, depending on water level, 28 to 30 feet. And the slope moving out from that drops down very quickly to 45 feet. But you don't want to put the pipe down on the bottom of the lake. Keep sucking second.
Yeah.
That may be why someone's telling you that it needs to go out that much further, but
Right.
it drops down to 45 feet, about 50 feet.
Really?
Pretty precipitous drop off right where the pipe stops, and I think that's the reason they did that. Because the work to extend the pipe to deeper depths is more challenging for divers, yeah. And they didn't need to, for all those years, we were sucking good cold water at that depth.
And now probably not,
And we're not, and we're
Right.
sucking hot water from that depth.
which doesn't give you a good picture of what's really happening.
So,
Which doesn't give you necessarily the right picture of what's happening. At that depth.
Well, I think everybody would agree that we prefer to have water cooler, deeper part of the lake.
Yeah.
On top, yeah.
so can I ask some clarifying question, that the current depth of the top of the pipe is 28 feet or 35 feet?
28 to 30 feet, the top.
28 to 30. And the thermocline is now appearing.
It's all over the place, yeah, it's closer to 50,
Closer to 50.
yeah.
Or depends.
Yeah.
Which part of the lake you're in?
Right, and if we do not have the temperature sensors at that end of the lake, well, I am saying it's from the buoy of the 5 Mile Point, and because it's shallower, I would not be surprised if there's a lot more sloshing around of the water, which might bring the warm water even deeper than, in the middle of the lake.
Absolutely, there's definitely a section going on, because
So, for the purpose of the water and sewer board of the village, what is this telling them? What is your message to them about?
What,
Yeah,
what should be?
hey, that they're the one treating the water, and I thought that they would have, encountered much more difficulties than apparently they have in treating the water that they're getting from this top layer. I can't imagine, I don't drink village water, so I don't know, but I can't imagine it tastes as well as it did 10, 15 years ago.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I drink village water too, and I don't
But
agree
some-
that it tastes good.
It certainly isn't as cool as it used to be.
So the alternative to the way the pipe is set up now in the lake, should there be a study to find the best situation for that new pipe to be installed? And at what depth and in what position in the lake?
Yes, but as Professor Yakota has already noted, the ends of the lake are the ones that are most susceptible to the rocking of those layers. And we don't have any equipment that is set up on the south end of the lake to give us a clue as to what's going on. I can tell you what we see when we're down there occasionally, but
That's what
it changes all the time.
you dive in the lake, so if we went around the lake, had diving done, and found all the contours that were reachable and could be reality. Where would be the best point with the pipe?
We can find the deeper spots or the feasible spots for getting to depth much easier than point divers. The real question is, how deep do we need to go? And to do that, we should be hanging some equipment in the south end of the lake and watching them for a while.
So
We're gonna spend a hell of a lot of money doing that pipe again. That's an enormous pipe.
Yeah.
You won't
Well,
know.
that's the last.
So is there a way you could give the village, kind of a proposal for installation of a sensor at the site?
Or equipment at the south end of the lake.
We do the water column, but like a miniature version of what you've got.
Miniature CLMV.
Yeah, so just for the temperature, it probably will be 20K or something like that. If you want a weather station and all that, probably 30K. And if you want to have the same sort of water quality thing, probably 50K.
Well, what do you think is the parameter that's most important?
Temperature,
Temperature.
temperature. Or,
And what a call,
yeah,
so it could be central,
right,
and that's $20,000.
probably.
So what, can someone get that in writing to Joe?
Yeah, if you wanna just email me something about that, I'll bring it up at the next, water and sewer board meeting, which is next
Next week.
Tuesday at 9 o'clock.
Okay, and then logistically, it is a lot more complicated because you have more boat traffic there, unlike in the middle of the lake. And in order for a buoy to be deployed, we need permission from all the property owners who have the, like, there is a like a pie like thing around the lake.
The closest proximate,
Yeah,
yeah, and then the sheriff. So we have to have, permission from all of them. It took us 9-10 months to get all the permissions last time we did, so, you know.
For the.
It's
Is there a
like
way?
putting Jim's property into the lake,
Is there,
I rated about the right place.
is there a way to deploy subsurface 10 or 15 feet and not have to deal with,
it's possible, but then somebody needs to go out there and get the temperature loggers out and manually transfer the data, so we would not have the transmission, so.
We don't want that.
And just to be clear, like another factor here is trying to get the intake below the point where there could be microsystems, right? Is that a concern? Like, no, we talked about tasty water, cooler water is tastier,
Right.
but like this is another looming large factor potentially, right?
Yeah, and then, I mean, the dead microcysts will be at all depths anyway, and it really depends on which layer we are drawing from. So, no, it's reducing the risk, but just because we are drawing from lower down doesn't mean that it is free of cyanobacteria and toxins.
Right, so the testing we're doing so far is coming up negative.
It's being low enough, yeah,
Yeah.
to satisfy the drinking water regulations.
But it's not non-detect.
Oh, no.
No, there is some, detectable amount here and there, at least in the middle of the lake or the shoreline samples.
Know what I mean, in our water treatment plant.
They didn't do it this season, but the previous 2 years, there was no detectable amount in the intake water.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
That's the regulations for the quality of water condition.
Department of Health,
So
the New York State.
they're constantly upgrading based on information that's submitted to them by people testing the water with zero mussels in it. Everything.
It's just the statewide regulation. So it applies to all water utilities.
That's being public.
Thank you for bringing this up. Very important. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Kyoko. So you'll get something to Mr.
Yeah, I will provide.
Mr. Member, Okay. All right, kiddo. Let's do it.
About 10 minutes. I'll go fast.
And just while you're setting that up, what about bubblers and de-icers? What are we doing about that? Are we doing, we as WSC, the royal we, are we doing anything about this?
Well, OLA has been doing public awareness campaign.
Looks better this year.
Yeah.
They're all.
Giveaways.
Not happen that clearly, but it looks better. We're seeing a lot of people that are turning them off and on.
Okay.
Right.
Good job, OLA. Nice job, Jim.
It's all that, right?
Good to go?
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I'm just gonna go over what OCCA found with our culvert assessments that we did in the Osceola Lake watershed. So why do we care about culverts? So when we talk about culverts, a culvert is a type of structure to convey water. And typically when we say we're looking at culverts, usually it's some kind of pipe underfill that lets, the stream go under a road. But we also use the term culvert to apply to different types of structures like bridges and forts. And we really care about these structures because streams are highways for movement. We really care about our migratory fishes, the amphibians, reptiles, and vertebrates that all have to get through these structures. And when you have a culvert that is degraded or undersized, it can create disconnect between upstream and downstream habitats. And it can act as a barrier both to organism movement and also to water. So some of the issues that can arise with culverts are free falls. So when the outlet is above the grade of the natural stream and you get waterfalls coming out of the outlet, that makes it really difficult for organisms to get out there. We see a lot of debris built up inside of culverts with, sticks and fencing and metal and all sorts of stuff gets trapped in there. Beavers do like to block off culverts. There's also issues when there's no substrate inside of a culvert, which is what we see like 99% of the time. That makes it hard if you are a crawling organism that needs something to grab onto or need to take a break behind a rock or something. And also when there are different water depths and velocities, so a lot of times, especially with these round culverts, the water is a lot shallower than an aquifer stream bed, which can be really difficult if you're a fish trying to get through. So the goals of our project were to assess crossings in the Otsego Lake and Rainbow Lake and Butternut Creek watersheds to determine aquatic passability scores for each of the culverts. So for Otsego and Canada-Rago, there had only been a handful of assessments done on culverts. For the Butternut Creek, they had assessed all of the culverts in that watershed in 2017, but we wanted to reassess some of the ones that scored poorly to see if there have been any changes or replacements. So we did collect structural data, but the main goal was to assess aquatic activity. And so all of the data that we collected is shared with the TC. And the main goal is that they can come up with a list of crossings that really need to be replaced. So when we go out to assess a culvert, we follow the standard protocol of the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative, which I will call NAC. So we go out and we take measurements, and some of the things we look at are the crossing type. So is it a bridge? Is it a culvert? Is it a double culvert? The shape of the culvert, we record the material dimensions, so basic things like height, width, water depth, water width. We look and see if there's a scour pool, so is there a big, huge eroded pool on the outlet? We also look at whether the structure is aligned with the angle of the natural stream, and we record physical barriers, so is there a fence blocking the culvert? Is it full of debris? Along with constriction. So we measure the width of the natural stream bed and compare that to the width of the structure. We also look at flow condition, whether there's an outlet drop, whether there's substrate in the structure, and whether there is dry passage. So a corridor of dry land that terrestrial organism could use. And most of the time, the answer is no for that one. And then we upload all of our data to the NAC database, which automatically calculates the score for aquatic organism passability. So what is aquatic organism passability? So this just tells us whether or not an aquatic organism can get through a structure. So when we upload this data, NAC produces two scores. The first is the course screen. So this is just a very basic classification of culvert, whether there's no AOP, reduced AOP, or full AOP. And then from there, it produces the aquatic passability score, which is a numeric score ranging from 0 to 1 that is used to determine the severity of a barrier. So whether it's an insignificant barrier or moderate or severe. So we care more about the aquatic passability score because it gives more granularity.
So lower is worse, not better.
Yeah. You do not want the AOP score to be 0 because that is like end of the road, nothing's getting off that. Whereas one, like this bridge was wonderful, it spans full banks. So that would be a one. So in the Otsego Lake watershed, we looked at 155 crossings. We mostly saw round metal culverts, but we also looked at some bridges and concrete box culverts. And what we found was that it wasn't great, but we kind of expected that. We found that nearly 65% of these structures were undersized for the relative stream that they were on, which obviously causes issues with erosion and can make it more difficult for organisms to pass. And only 6% of the structures span the full stream channel and banks. And I think all of those were bridges. 40% of these structures had outlets that were above stream grade. So when you think about, 40% of these road stream crossings are cut off by waterfall, if you're a fish, that can make your journey pretty difficult.
Back to the only 6% had full stream channel and banks, like, is there such a thing as a culvert that satisfies that? No. By definition, a culvert doesn't have dry passage.
No.
Yeah.
No, we saw some culverts that were a lot wider than the stream. So
Yeah.
those might get that classification. But when we're looking at, just in general, it's usually just bridges. I think we only have like one culvert that technically spans the full channel on banks. So our AOP scores were kind of rough. We found that only 15% of these structures had full aquatic organism passage, and the other 85% had reduced or no AOP. And this was because of things I mentioned: the free falls, the big deep scour pools, lack of substrate, and constriction. And of these bad structures, nearly 28% of them were classified as a severe barrier. So it would be nearly impossible for an organism to pass and would really just be the end of the road, which obviously we're seeing isolated populations. There could be a reduction in gene flow and some trout that aren't able to reach their ancestral breeding grounds. So what is next? We are hoping to do a more detailed analysis with this data. We really want to cross-index some information about which of these tributaries are trout streams, or are they habitats for certain endangered species? Are they on wetlands? So we want to put all of that data in there too, and do kind of maybe a real statistical analysis on this stuff. And we're going to use this, well, not me specifically, but hopefully DC will use this to build a list of crossings that can be restored and replaced. If you want to look at the data, it is available at the NAC Data Center, so you can go to the Stream Crossing Explorer and look at the map of all of the different culverts that we've assessed. And if you're just curious about this project, you can visit streamcontinuity.org. It's a really big collaboration across 13 states, so there's a lot of data. And, you know, we have to acknowledge the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation who funded this project, and the New York State DC who trained all of our lead observers. So,
Florian, I know you do a lot of work on organisms at BFS. Is this stuff you knew already, or is this new information, or?
Nothing here was surprising.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got a question.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the village of Cooperstown commissioned the Corps of Engineers to do a study of Willow Brook, mostly in terms of flood risk assessment. If you haven't seen that report, we should get it to you because it was recently published within the last couple of months. It was a long delay because of the government shutdown and everything, and weather-related things. It started more than a year ago. One of the things that struck me about the result of that was in terms of flood risk, Willow Brook has a minimal potential flood impacts for the whole village. But what struck me, and I think it's just because it's such a small watershed, but when you get to Grove Street, we had a culvert project that we spent a lot of money on using grants to create a pretty substantial overpass that is, I think, would satisfy the criteria you're talking about. But just downstream of that, Willow Brook is channelized partially underground for about a third of a mile, I would say. All the way
we did that one.
through Double Bay. So easily. And they looked at that and found its condition degrading, but not dangerously so. And I just talked to a resident yesterday, by coincidence, who talked about the culvert near Chestnut Street, where it's the concrete U-shaped channel that's being caved in or pressured by old trees that are causing it to deteriorate. But when you, for biological purposes, passage, did you find that Willow Brook? What did you find out about Willow Brook in terms of, or what's your conclusion about Willow?
Yeah, we didn't, break it down by tributaries, so I don't have like a number for you. But I would definitely be a little concerned about the buried stream under town, not necessarily for flooding, but I don't think fish is really gonna have fun in there. I know when we went to look at it, it was completely dry, so, nothing's really getting in there. It was actually, there was water at the inlet, but nothing coming out of the outlet. We didn't walk through the whole thing, we went off and around to do the other side, but I don't know what's happening there where the water is going, or if the flow just wasn't high enough.
I'm told that Willow Brook, the lower reach anyway, is a trout spawning stream. Is that true?
I think so, yeah.
So how far up would it go?
I don't know, yeah, but I've heard that said.
I didn't understand.
There was somebody was stating that the former Bill Water, who done some work on Willow Brook, said that Willow Brook, the lower reach there at least is designated as a spawning area for other lake fish. And I don't, maybe not trout, but I just say.
Yeah, I don't. Huh. You know that Willow Brook is not. It didn't always empty into the lake. Used to go straight to the river. Then redirected. So that would indicate. Maybe not indicate, but it would make me suspicious of whether there was ancestral fish use of. Yeah,
And it's been redirected in modern times too.
It's also very silted in too, that they're outlet.
Right, right.
what we do know is that when the water flows strong. Willow Brook dumps a lot of mud into the lake, right around in front of the village moorings.
Right.
Area. Yep. Which is conducive to Eurasian water milfoil growth in that area. So you talked about this study, was part of the study looking at dredging the pond up then?
No, it was purely, from the Corps of Engineers role, they just assess flood risk. So they look at the current condition of it and they project floods, including some climate change criteria,
Yeah,
increased floods, and they found maybe 3 structures around Railroad Avenue potentially affected.
sure.
With a foot of water, maybe. So it was pretty minimal. Which surprised me because we have, as I say, that new grocery culvert, if you look at it, can pass an enormous flow of water. But I don't think, immediately downstream, that's.
Well, in this meeting and last, we talked about Clark Pond a number of times and the need for dredging. I haven't heard anything about the need for dredging along Willow Brook, but both of those natural catch basins need to be cleaned out. And I understand that's an expensive thing, easy to say and expensive to do, but both of them need to be cleaned out regularly.
When you say natural catch basin, so I'm looking at the little pond at the end of Main Street and from Main Street.
No, I'm talking about up in the town of Otsego.
Hiram.
Yes.
By the landfill.
Well, isn't it? Okay, but that little one, there's a little pond there.
Yeah, that little one could be cleaned out again. But it would be better even if it was cleaned out in the big one up by the land.
And that's the Fish and Game Club one?
Yes, by the fishing game, yeah.
Not theirs.
And cleaning that out shouldn't bother the folks at the Fish and Game Club, so it'd probably make it better fishing for. Doesn't have to be the whole thing cleaned out, just need to, as we do with Clark Pond, we need to regularly take what the stormwater has deposited and back up. Hydro drain.
Thank you.
And,
I got a
Joe,
question.
can you send the Willowbrook report? I've been asking Cindy for it to us. We should have it, get it to the consultants, and if you wouldn't mind forwarding it, and I'll get it to the rest of WSC.
Yeah, great. Yep. But the question that I had was that, you know, these culverts are underneath they need different roads that are looked after by the different levels of government. If they have to get repaired, who does that repair? Does that go to a state level or is it done by whoever owns the road that's going by? And how does that go? Does anybody know?
If it's the town road, it's done by the town. I mean, our town says it, we pay for it, and we ask for money sometimes.
Trout Unlimited has taken a big focus on the issue of culverts because impacts the spawning of trout and has worked with a number of different municipalities and county governments to replace culverts in the New York Susquehanna. And continuing to do so. I'm working with them on a project over in Tioga County.
There's also a fund, a New York State Bridge Fund that you can apply to, depending on what kind of road it is. But you need to hire an engineer in advance to do a report in order to get the bridge fund to give you money and then monitor the rebuilding of the bridge, like one of the culverts we see here. Because we are looking at that for some of our bridges.
Well, one of
With
the,
culverts.
one of the things that strikes me about this is how segmented our science is. So we did a flood risk assessment that looked at Willowbrook in case of the Corps of Engineers that dealt with neither siltation nor aquatic
Communication,
terrestrial.
communication is out of.
Bye, Bob.
But it's just the discipline. So now we were looking at the culvert that runs under the Railroad Avenue property where the hotel is. That's maybe 150, 200 feet of covered culvert. They only spoke to the fact that Railroad Avenue crosses part of that culvert, so they didn't look at it the full length of it. But the point being, when I went and looked at that culvert, it seemed to be a third full of cobble and other things that maybe a critter would like to have available to it. But it also seemed to have highly constricted the conveyance capacity of the culvert. But that ended up being irrelevant to flood risk because flood risk was so small.
But important.
But what really gets me is your point has been discussed by neither study, which is there is siltation occurring way upstream of the village boundary.
Absolutely.
That's all being conveyed through the village and into the.
Yeah.
Adding artificially or unnaturally to the delta formation.
Absolutely, unnaturally, considering that stream never,
It's supposed to
Didn't
go
go
there.
through
never was supposed to get into the lake. It was
Well, but
supposed to go to the river.
but we have to talk a little bit in human time, not geologic time. I mean, that Willowbrook has been where it's been forever.
Yeah.
In terms historical.
Yes.
And so that delta formation. You're saying that delta formation could be abated and the milfoil could be abated by cleaning the pond
No,
3 miles up the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That, I've never heard that connection.
Well, you've heard it now.
You'll hear it now. You'll hear it here. It has been brought up here before, but you weren't with us then, so.
I mean, and that seems to me more of an immediate threat than the Clark Pond situation.
And know that the delta that has built up would erode over time if no more sediment was coming down. Because the same surging would happen, but it would be the clean water, it would help to move the sediment that's been deposited there further downstream, take it out to the river. When we have had aerial photographs of after the storm, when I say we, Signal Lake Association paid for it, the BFS did it. There was a very clear horseshoe of mud plume that came out of Willowbrook and just wrapped right around and went to the river. Big U-turn. It's going to the river one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Clark Pond is, what do you think? Clark Pond is just as important.
Oh, it's
Well,
more important. It's a bigger,
Yeah.
it's a bigger chunk of water. It's raining a bigger watershed.
Right, I'm not trying to create a debate about it.
No, no.
But it sounds like the Clark Pond situation is an imminent potential threat in the event of failure of the dam or whatever, you'd have all those sediments in the lake. We're now talking about an actual ongoing siltation problem with Whale Brook. That's the difference. I'm
There's-
talking
Well,
No,
it's
no,
filled
it's-
up now, it's putting silt into the lake now, because Clark Pond is filled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's changed. 20 years ago, it was a better filter by biological field stations measurements in terms of E. coli counts and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. Than it is now. So it's, its filtering capability. Well, Clark Pond's changed a lot. It was an 11 acre pond. Now it's about a 6 acre pond. But, and so, some of that is gonna be, eventually it's just gonna get silted in completely, but for the threat to the quality of the drinking water in the lake, there's a very easily measurable activity there that we need to pay attention to.
That's why we keep trying to get an assessment done so we can figure out what it's gonna cost to fix that. So.
And do the same thing for the Little Brook.
Mhm. Yeah, we do.
Well, it's a very different volume of water going through, but
Yeah,
they're the same thing, and it's also the fact that Willowbrook dumps water in a lot closer to where the village gets its water than Clark Pond, which is all the way at the other end of the lake, and it's got the whole lake to dissolve whatever, and diffuse whatever's in there.
okay. I think we're done. Any other issues? Anything that didn't get said? Anything that didn't get brought up? All right, thank you very much.
They just did a new culvert system on Hayden Creek, right where it goes through Springfield Center.
Yeah.
And that,
And the town.
the creek comes down and turns a right angle, right underneath Route 80. And on the other side of that is that it used to be housing for people that.
See you all soon.
See you. With the
Thanks.
hops around.
Thanks, Lauren, glad you're here.
Thank
you.
But it's only 6 feet from the road. But that house just sits right in there. The whole thing is so nuts.
I'd like to understand more of the trustee, from the trustee's point of view. I look at Old Pond, I hike up there, I see Old Pond. And I consider that to be the headwaters, in other words, I'm going to rain, so it comes in on the side. Is this siltation
Better.
is a current.
Finally, more than a
on
month.
today.
I had a ton of
And
that.
what's the, there isn't any sun in this.
Not a problem.
Road. Very small.
This, that phase.
No,
But,
sand.
Did you miss the fun or the?
So it comes down that hill.
I went to, fires first.